got everyone that we need? Well, kia ora koutou katoa. Welcome to today's extraordinary council meeting. Just an acknowledgement, I guess, that we are not meeting on a regular meeting day, and there are a lot of moving parts on the item in front of us today, and we're all coming into this meeting from different places. So firstly, I will call for apologies. We've got an apology for lateness from Councillor Fanini Taiti, but I believe everyone else is...
Councillor Hopkins, I think. Not Hopkins, sorry. Councillor Holding.
And Councillor Holding, an apology for lateness. Can I get someone to move that we accept those apologies? Mayor Tavendale, seconded by Councillor Cowles. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
That's carried. So moving on to declarations of interest. There being none, I will move on to the report in front of us, the adoption of a Head Start proposal. And Alex, am I handing that over to you to introduce?
You are. I will start off. Thank you, Mayor and Councillors, for coming together today, and apologies for the short notice in terms of the proposal document being issued to yourselves and to the wider community. This is due to the timeframes we're working in, set by the government. At its meeting on the 7th of July, Council decided it wanted to submit a proposal for amalgamation of Waitaki into a new unitary council under the government's simplifying Head Start reform. To be included in this, Council must agree a Head Start proposal with other councils and submit it to the government by the 9th of August, this Sunday, or rely on the backstop provision, which currently is unclear what that involves and how much say councils and communities would have in that. So this report brings before Council the draft Head Start proposal for local government reorganisation, and in simple terms it asks Council to approve the proposal to be submitted to government for Waitaki to join with Timaru, Waimate and Mackenzie District Councils to form a unitary authority, which would combine the functions of those councils and the regional councils, so for us ORC and Environment Canterbury. Since the agenda and report was published, Ashburton District Council has voted not to participate in Head Start at this stage and to participate in the government's backstop. The draft proposal at this stage reflects that decision, but keeps the door open to Ashburton to join the proposal at a later date should it want to. I want to be clear from the outset that the decision before Council today is not the final decision on what any future council might look like. This is essentially the start of the process, and there'll be a lot of work to do should our proposal be accepted, and a lot of decisions for this council to make with the partner councils on what the future arrangements look like. This proposal does not settle questions, therefore, around representation, local boards, assets, services, staffing, rates, debt, and all of those detailed matters. It sets a direction for those, but it doesn't actually settle those matters at this stage. It is by definition of what the government required, a high-level proposal on how amalgamation might work. So even after we've made the submission, it's important to note that continued progress is still dependent on this government accepting this proposal, and then the next government wishing to continue with the direction of reform and then passing legislation through Parliament to enable it. What this decision does do is give Waitaki the opportunity to continue to be at the table and shape the future of the district and its governance in the next stage of the reform process. The key issues Council has highlighted are contained within the document. At the moment, keeping the whole of the Waitaki district together while still engaging further with Waihemo communities on their preferences for the future. Ensuring that in the future the Waitaki River catchment is within one authority rather than being split between many. Protecting a strong local voice and ensuring that any future arrangements have the scale and capability to be more efficient, affordable and resilient. On that basis, the recommendation is that Council approve the Head Start proposal with partner councils, subject to minor amendments, and also give delegated authority for this to be finalised and submitted. I just wanted to also, in closing, acknowledge the very short space of time that we've had to develop this, and thank those members of the community that have taken the time to engage with our hastily arranged consultations and engagement events. And we've heard a wide range of views that have really helped shape the proposal and shaped what Council has agreed so far to date. I also wanted to acknowledge the effort put in by staff and elected members from across the 4 councils, and including our council, to draw this proposal together. The recommendation is about preserving Waitaki's ability to influence the process, protect the interests that matter most to our district, and ensure we continue to act in the best interests of Waitaki through this reform process. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I think before we open to questions, Mayor Tavendale, I'll just hand over to you to provide a bit of an update.
Thank you, and apologies, I am at Wellington Airport, so hopefully the sound is okay. Found a quiet-ish corner. So there's, as Alex mentioned, this has been a really fast-moving conversation, and it continues to be fast-moving. So conversations we've had today with what was CIA, now insert, have indicated that there could be a problem with the way we are setting up our application at the moment, which is around the fact that having Canterbury opt out Ashburton opt out has meant that we don't have an answer for all of Canterbury in the mix, which means when we're talking about the regulatory functions or the regional council functions for all of Canterbury, that's not going to be answered through the Head Start proposal, which means our proposal is not likely to meet the requirements. So that's one of the issues we're working with. And also with that is the fact that it does affect our numbers and how realistic our actual application is. So based on that, the recommendation between the mayors of the 4 councils that are looking at putting this in has been shifting, and so we are talking about wanting to have Ashburton at the table. Now that is not Ashburton's preference, and it's been something we've always worked away from. I'm just making sure everyone can still hear me okay. There's a lot of noise going on behind me. So yeah, Ashburton isn't coming to the table. They do want to sit in the backstop process, and I have spoken to them. One thing Ashburton is keen to be as part of the conversation moving forward, so that if they end up in our process, that they've actually been part of the conversations and part of the direction setting. And so what we are recommending is moving Ashburton into our application regardless of where they're sitting at. And the reason being for that, it's going to give us more likelihood of getting our application over the line. And that's what I do want to see us adding, and I've got the agreement so far of at least 2 of the other mayors from other councils, is adding an off-ramp forward to the Head Start proposal. So basically that does mean that we enter into the Head Start proposal with Ashburton, and I get that's going away from our willing partner start, but it's giving them an off-ramp so that we can keep them at the table, have them part of all the planning conversations in the deeper detail, and then they still have an option, should that not work for them and not give them the answers they need as a council, to actually step out of the process in the future. So I have circulated, and I've sent it to Arlene as well, a new recommendation in that space. It's a bit of a last minute one, I realise, but I'm happy to take any questions on that. It's going to be a bit of a political discussion as much as anything.
Thank you. So opening up for questions, Councillor Schlack.
Yeah, thanks, Mel, for that. And just making sure I understand this correctly. So we're going to submit a proposal that includes Ashburton, a bit like in the form of a foreign takeover, because they're going to the backstop, or we're going to include Ashburton in our proposal to make up the numbers, correct?
That's what I'm suggesting, and that's been a very last minute conversation between mayors, and I have given Ashburton the heads up that I am going to be discussing this today, because I don't like the takeover way of going about things. I think that the trouble with the speed of this process and trying to get into the Head Start rather than falling into the backstop, which I think is problematic for Waitaki in particular, is that some of these conversations are being had way too fast, and we're reacting, and we're in a reacting space on this one. So Ashburton understand the reasons why that change is happening at the moment, or why I'm recommending that we make that change, and they probably don't love it because it does kind of put them into a mix, but they do understand that it's an effort to keep them as part of the conversation. And the off-ramp option does mean that if we get into the detail and it's really not a direction of travel that suits them as a council, they do have an out.
Okay, if I can just respond to that from my point of view, I think that is a good move. After all, Ashburton did have a choice to join us in this proposal. Instead, they have decided or elected to go into the backstop, and I'm pretty sure that they would be well aware what the consequences of the backstop process possibly could be. So I think from a perspective of protecting our own interest as well, making sure we don't get divided up, etc., because the vultures are circling, I think, then I think that is something that I think is worthwhile supporting. I, for one, do.
Thank you, Councillor Schlack. Are there any other questions at this stage from councillors? Councillor McCone, and then I wonder, Arlene, if we could get the recommendations up in front of us, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Just to clarify more of what Franz was going on about, if we don't do this, we run the risk of actually going back to be part of the backstop, and we could be on the menu if we don't go forward.
I guess just to respond to that, if I can, to the chair, yeah, I think that's the main reason that I am responding at the moment, that none of this is a exact science, because I guess you've got your insert or DIA officials that are operating in between what the ministers are saying. So they can only offer us their best advice. And the way we have it currently structured, it does have an option to go through. I'm not saying it definitely won't, but I think that we've had a risk highlighted to us that I think we need to take seriously. And I think as well, like, this whole process has really pushed relationships across the whole country, which is a real shame. And I think being able to keep talking to Ashburton and give them the heads up on what we're discussing and that kind of thing means we're not damaging relationships, but it is putting it in a really uncomfortable space. But I do think for our community and for our application, it's probably the right direction to take.
Thank you, and I'd agree.
Now, this is the start. Have a wee look. Just going to have to work on the recommendation of Waitaki, because it's a bit of a moving piece, this one. And I do want to make sure we add the off-ramp pause, which I haven't I've spoken to Alex about, but we haven't added into anything yet. So having a look at the resolution in front of us, approve the Head Start proposal to government, proposed amalgamation Waitaki District with Timaru, Waimate, Mackenzie and Ashburton District, subject to minor amendments. That's adding Ashburton into the conversation. Delegate the Chief Executive in consultation with the Mayor the authority to make or agree minor amendments and finalise the document for submission, and the authority to sign the document. So in here somewhere, I want to add an off-ramp pause to the Head Start proposal to be, I guess, circulated to the other councils, something along those lines. Not sure where the best place to put that one is. Thoughts, Alex?
I think if you put a new number 2, so that council agrees that a off-ramp clause should be inserted into the Head Start proposal that all councils are able to exercise at any point before the final proposal is agreed.
Yeah,
And by final proposal, I mean the detailed proposal, and maybe we should qualify that. You know, it's an off-ramp that's between now and the detailed submission that'd be required.
I guess just a question from me on that. I guess we can put an off-ramp clause into a document, but I guess can the government ultimately decide that we can't exercise that, or is there any risk around that?
So the conversations we've had with DIA or NSERC have been that there's a number of councils that are looking at off-ramps. They'll want to understand why, so they probably will come back with questions to the councils involved to get a better understanding of what that means and why we're looking at doing that. But I think that they did understand the need with the speed to do it. I think we can explain it well, but I think in the actual application, it's probably best to keep it high level and just saying that it gives us opportunity to. And I do think that they will come back to us to understand it better. And I think that gives us a wee bit of chance to clarify. But from my understanding, it should be a viable option.
Thank you. Alex.
I think just to add to that, at the moment, this is a voluntary arrangement, but the government is determined to reorganise local government, and so I think we need to acknowledge that if any council, including potentially this council, did exercise that off-ramp, the government might take a different view on that when it comes to legislating for change, and that is a risk, and that's the government's right to do that, because Parliament will ultimately decide the shape of things going forward.
Thank you. France. Councillor Schleck, sorry.
It's all right. I'm just looking at the way it is worded, and don't want to debate semantics, but shouldn't that say allowing any of the councils rather than all councils? Because an individual council might exercise this off-ramp clause whilst others don't.
Yeah.
All right, that's been changed. Thank you, France. Mayor Tavendale.
So just going into more the detail, there's possibly still a few wee bits and pieces to play around with in the detail around the document, but we've done a fair bit of toing and froing with that, and I know the other councils are still very much working on it. So what we've got in front of us now, we need to work out if there's anything in particular that's of concern. I think we've got it to a pretty reasonable space, and it's quite high level, so there's not a huge amount that's actually tying us down as a council to what we have to do. But we're also going to need, and this is the reason for the authority to be able to make and agree minor amendments between myself and Alex, because there's a number of councils that are meeting a bit later on that are also going to be working through details. So I'll certainly keep councillors at the table to understand where things are moving to, but we just need to have the ability to respond within time without having to call another formal meeting, which we would struggle with.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other amendments or discussion on the resolution in front of us before or questions, sorry, Councillor Schleck.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, I was just going to respond to what our Mayor just said. So not necessarily about this clause. I mean, but we can, make some changes that might make it a little bit clearer. But we understand what the reasons and what the function of the off-ramp claim clause is. I have a comment to make on the proposal as it is being sent to us in the last draft, but it's not one that is going to stop this proposal going ahead. But if we are going to discuss it, there's one point I want to make.
No, I guess there will be the opportunity for discussion once we have a resolution in front of us. So I guess putting it out there, is anyone happy to move the recommendations that have just disappeared from the screen? But I think we've had an opportunity to have a good look over. Mayor Tavendale, is that you putting up your hand to move?
Yes, please.
Lovely. Do we have a seconder?
I
Councillor.
just wonder, sorry, with number 2, if we can make it the detailed design proposal. just a number
So
2 there.
inserting design after detailed. Excellent. Councillor Lewis, you had your hand up to second that. Excellent. I will open it up for discussion.
I've done a fair bit of speaking to it anyway, but yeah, just it's not where I wanted to go when it came to the non-willing partners, but I think it's the gentlest way we can go about something that will hopefully still get an outcome that may be viable and may get it over the line. Certainly for everything we've got ahead of us as a council, and with all of the people talking about Waitaki and different proposals and different bits and pieces, I think a bit of certainty for our community is important, and I do think we want to be part of this Head Start process and designing our own destiny. And so the ability to have our Head Start proposal accepted is really important, I think, to our council in particular. So that's why I'm responding to what I'm hearing from MCERT as being a risk and responding appropriately. So yeah, I think for those that I've managed to speak to really quickly in the last half hour, it's a bit of a rush around, but I think we all recognise the need to move fast in this process. We've got until the 9th to get this in, and trying to line up 4 and 5 councillors in that mix is a bit of fun.
Excellent. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Schlack.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I support the resolution, but I do have a comment around the proposal in general. Reading through it again today, I do tend that the proposal or the document tends to promote an electoral or a government model that has not been agreed yet by the districts. It is a model where the new unitary council is elected, directly elected. It's something that I don't think is correct, and definitely will need to be sorted out in the detailed design. I also acknowledge that there is quite a lot of caveats around there somewhere and all over the place of that document, so I'll leave it at bit, but this is an issue that personally is something that I will focus on in any future detailed proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schlack. We've got Councillor Lewis and then Councillor Cowles.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I'm fully supportive of this. It's not really a scenario, but conversations I've been having over the past couple of days, it's been a very close one thing as far as decisions that have been made and certain concerns that they've had, which I think will be addressed moving forward. But the reality of it is that we risk the whole thing falling over if we're not careful, and we have to do what's right for our district. And being a part of the Head Start process, in my opinion, is 100% the right thing to do. And I think that moving forward, things will become a lot clearer, but it gives the opportunity, the doors to open, it gives the opportunity for that discussion to continue and take part, and for them not to feel that they are also excluded. It's absolutely right thing to do.
Thank you. Councillor Cowles.
Yeah, look, thanks. Look, acknowledging that this whole thing's been under pressure and under a time frame, and this is a very high level start for this proposal. There's a lot of changes that can and will be made, I'm sure, as we move forward. But we've got to stick to what we believe is best for our district, and there was no uncertain terms that where we're looking and what we're doing is the right thing. Agree. Didn't really want to be doing to and doing with. That's fine, but we need to make sure we're taking care of what's best for our district, and I'd like to think that we get a bunch of willing partners working together as we move forward in time. So I'll be fully supportive of this. It's only the start, as Alex has pointed out, and there's a huge amount of work to move forward, but I really would like to think that the government will look at our direction, our firm direction on this, and see this as to something that we're pretty passionate about.
Thank you. Councillor McCone.
Yeah, look, I'd endorse what everybody said. We've looked at all the options. This is the best one we've decided to go with, and we've got to stick to our guns. If we don't, the options that we have out there are not palatable in my mind. That may not be the best for the district. So we need to go forward. To take on what Franz said, I totally agree that I'm very cynical of wording once it gets in a local body's document. So we've got to be very careful and very cautious and what we name and use, because that document, or even this one we're putting through with the wording in it, will actually come back and be used as a reference. So I would like to make sure that some of the wording in there at some stages on the page to be tweaked and changed, so we encompass the whole region rather than using individual regions' names or bits and pieces with it. We're trying to get a unitary authority together across a certain area. We've got to change everything, and to me, that's part of it.
Thank you. Mayor Tevendale?
Thank you. Just a few other things that I've come across along the way. The boundary discussion, particularly looking north, because that's been one of the conversations that I've heard today about where the proposal could put the boundary looking north. I still think that sits with Ashburton to decide. So I think a bit like the Waitaki discussion, we say all of Ashburton and keep working on what things look like in that regard. So just being careful not to go into the detailed design for anyone else on their behalf. And just to comment on the name, because I do think we need to get away from the South Canterbury North Target at some stage, but I do think that's actually a really important discussion we need everyone around the table at, rather than us trying to do it on the fly. So absolutely agree that this needs to get a name in front of it that we're all a bit comfortable with, but everyone needs to have a chance to have a say there, so that will come.
Yeah.
Councillor Thowning.
Yeah, no, this is obviously far from perfect, and that's a tricky one too, because throughout this whole thing we're going to have a lot of compromises and things that we don't like, and this Ashburton question is obviously the first of these things to come along. It's really not ideal. We wouldn't like it if the shoe was on the other foot, and there is a bit of that going on with Waitaki being eyed up and other proposals too. So that's a feature of the process. But I guess at the end of the day, the government's the one that's going to make the decision on this, and we've got to make the best of it. And when it comes to the proposal itself, there's been a lot of improvements made into the proposal. It's good to see a lot more of the critical infrastructure included, and things like that. So there's definitely some stuff that'll need worked out in detailed design, but for the moment, I'm tentatively, not fully, but tentatively, I'll support this.
Thank you, Councillor Thowning. Councillor Holding.
Yeah, I just have to agree. We could have sat on our laurels and participated a different way, but I think we've put our best foot forward. I'm quite glad the conversations and the thinking that has happened this quickly. It's been some good substance, and it gives a good starting point moving forward. But I'm supported to head that direction for now.
Thank you. And seeing no other hands up in front of me, I guess just from my perspective, yeah, it doesn't feel quite right having this discussion in this way with all of us scattered across the district and the country, and receiving the final document in front of us just hours before this meeting, and even then things pivoting again. But I guess that's the situation that we have in front of us. And this week's been interesting. I've spent a lot of time watching all the various different council meetings across the country as everyone else is making their own decisions and having these discussions. And, they're all talking about the same frustrations with process and timelines that we are. But I think what I keep coming back to is how constructive our conversations have really been in this Aotearoa grouping. And, for the most part, we've managed to put egos aside and focus on our communities and really genuinely work towards something better. And I think whatever happens from here, those relationships will be a real strength for us. Through this process, our community gave us some really clear messages. And I think what was interesting is, we heard from so many people who often don't find themselves agreeing with one another. There's some really consistent themes with those conversations around community and environment, culture, identity, and I think most importantly, an opportunity to do things better here. And that local voice and those local conversations, I think, is still one of my biggest focuses. And as we sort of move into the detailed design phase, the structures are important, but I think there's a real opportunity here to rethink about how our communities are engaging with local government altogether. And, in the document itself, it talks about the risk around losing people through this process. But to me, I see a real opportunity to create something new, and bring the community with us. It's an opportunity to start really fresh and help our communities understand local government, help them understand this new structure, and build something that's actually more accessible, more transparent, and helps people genuinely participate in it. And I guess also just really want to acknowledge the work of staff and elected members and Mayor Tavendale through this process. There have been so many late nights, difficult conversations, documents, and work to go through to help us analyse the options in front of us with such tight timeframes. And all of this has happened while we've been navigating some other fairly major work as well, around water reform, annual plan, and many other significant pieces of work. And we look at what both ourselves and staff have done this, knowing that the work that we're doing could mean the end of our futures as part of this council. So, and I guess before I finish, I also just want to acknowledge someone who isn't with us today. And before this meeting, I went back and listened again to Councillor Hopkins' final contribution on this topic. And, he acknowledged that this wasn't his ideal solution for the future of local government, but he also recognised that leadership isn't always about choosing the perfect option. Sometimes it's about making the best decision available with the information and the circumstances we're faced with. He also reminded us not to oversell what reform can achieve. Structural reform alone won't solve the fundamental funding challenges facing local government, and we shouldn't pretend otherwise. But he also challenged us to look beyond individual interests and focus on what we have in common as communities and on protecting local voices we work through, whatever comes next. And I think that's just a really important perspective for us to carry forward here. And we're all across the country right now, but I'm really happy to be sitting here in the chamber today. I often find myself looking around the room at the names of the mayors and councillors who came before us, even though one of the boards is missing behind me right now. But every one of these people put their hand up because they cared deeply about Waitaki and they wanted to leave this district better than they found it. And if this proposal ultimately proceeds, those of us here and all of the names, those of us here will possibly be the last councillors to serve the Waitaki District Council as it is, and that's quite a humbling thought to sit with. So, none of us came into local government expecting to make this sort of decision, but as Councillor Hopkins reminded us, leadership isn't about making the easy decisions, it's about making the ones we genuinely believe will give our communities the best opportunity to thrive, not just today, but for the generations who will inherit whatever we choose. So, if there are no other speakers, I will put the recommendations to which Arlene is bringing up in front of us to a vote. So we've got in front of us that Council approves the Head Start proposal to Government proposing the amalgamation of Waitaki District with Timaru, Waimate, Mackenzie and Ashburton districts subject to minor amendments. 2, agrees that an off-ramp clause should be inserted into the Head Start proposal, allowing any of the councils to exercise this option before the detailed design proposal is agreed. 3, delegates to the Chief Executive in consultation with the Mayor the authority to make or agree minor amendments and finalise the document for submission. And 4, delegates to the Mayor and, if required, the Chief Executive the authority to sign the document on behalf of Waitaki District Council prior to submission. Is anyone wanting us to take these separately, or are we happy to put them all together? No? Okay. Well, I will put that. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 And against? There being no against, that's a unanimous approval. That's carried. Excellent. I also thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, for joining us on anyone watching online. And unless there is anything else, Mayor Tavendale, that you would like to add, I will call the meeting to a close.
Just want to say, beautifully put. I think you just absolutely captured the essence of what we've got in front of you, and it was nice to bring Councillor Hopkins' words into the mix. And I guess the only other thing would be to other councils that we're looking at moving together and working with. It's an exciting opportunity, and I look forward to the conversations we've got from here, which is going to be moving into detailed design. It's actually a really exciting opportunity for us and offers so many new ways of looking at things. So I really look forward to moving into that space. I guess for Ashburton, it's keeping that same willingness to work together and looking for the best for them and trying to still keep their decisions and their ability to make their own decisions alive. I think that's really important to me and the rest of us. And so just really saying that though this is including them in our mix, we do it with absolute respect.
Excellent. Thank you.
Awesome.
With that, I will declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, very much for joining us.